What's up guys, it's me again. After playing around with the Cold Heart in between my other build, I think we're having something really universal to take on. Also will include my Lava Citadel voucher farming build because it's kinda hot topic on streams. Let's get to it. As usual, a little disclaimer. This build will not delete screen of mobs with a single press of a button. Creator of this video is simply having fun. Enjoy. So what's good, what's bad, what's ugly? The good, Hailey's back. With some of a beast builds, Cold Heart and Camouflaged Sniping are really good. I decided to start with the Cold Heart and later down the road we might tackle with the Sniping build. I want to have it as a dessert. Bad thing, sometimes you get a flashbangs in your face. I think it depends on the direction you're facing and if you're standing near the barrier. So don't play it with the lights off in the middle of the night. And ugly? There is no ugly here. Okay, the build time. The modules. I will start with skill simplification. By the way, this build is focusing on her first skill because it's easier to use and having lots of AoE for lowest amount of effort. So skill simplification gives the most bang for the buck because the skill power modifier is really important for that as it already has a quite low amount of it. The second one, the cooldown corner with the focus on chill, obviously it gives us damage and because other skills already have over the top damage. Then we have a cooldown corner with the focus on chill, obviously it gives us damage. However, cooldown is really important. We're trying to get non-stop spam with the first skill. However, we're not going for 90% cap reduction. 2.5 seconds cooldown is really enough because the animation. Each time animation finishes off, you already have the cooldown back and ready. So we don't need to squeeze the cooldown. Then we have a crit corner, like the default for crit modules. However, we're only reaching 90% of crit, we're not min-maxing that, and it's really enough because the amount of attacks per second we're doing. And it gives us more freedom to replace the ancestor modules with. A little bit sprinkle with the range, and our ultimate Speed Dominator. Full time uptime, 30% skill power all the time, and it just requires to spam us with the first skill, which is the core of this build. Obviously there is one dependency, which is relative speed. It's matter of choice, but I do enjoy those headshots AoEs from time to time as well. It's fun and it looks cool. Not necessarily needed, you can go back to the power beyond and swap Speed Dominator, let's say for hyper focus, or remove it completely for ancestor module. I'm already discussing some alternative things because alternative section will be our bossing build. Let's continue. As you might notice, it's a backup build. This one is the core build. However, there is a couple choices for you to think of. The main thing, which module you want to replace with the ancestor module. Statistically, normally you would replace something from the crit stuff. Depends how much crit reduction you can tolerate. However, I went with the skill simplification removal. I just like orange numbers too much and would like to keep that to close to 100%. As for the stats, you're looking for the crit damage and type skill power, not modifier. However, I'm not yet there. As you can see, I'm using whatever I have. Just try to get as max crit damage as possible with the singular type power skill boost. And maybe one penalty which is not reducing the crit or crit damage or elemental attacks. Maybe not HP as well. Some mobs in Supermassive are a little bit annoying at range. And since it's almost impossible to have a god rolls on those things, you can actually go triple bonus with one negative. But in perfect world it's 2 to 1. So how the trigger module works. You cast your first skill 3 times, you get the max amount of stacks, your icon on the bottom will highlight, that's where you can make a headshot and it will deal lots of damage. To deal max amount of damage with this skill, you need around 450 MP. Don't worry about the cooldown too much, because even with the worst one, we cannot really race against that. Weapons. Frost Watcher is back on the menu, but for the fun stuff, you can go with Albion Cavalry Gun like we did in previous video, because most of the time we'll be spamming first skill and you can use any weapon. It's not blocking your shooting. Here's the build. I will not go through it in details. Most of the time we're using to apply the chill resistance reduction reduction and shoot some weak points of the commanders. But remember one thing, to get the debuffs from this gun, you have to aim at least from the 12.5 meters. Keep it in mind for the bossing and go for the headshots. Reactor. Breach boys with some critical hit damage obviously. I'm not going with the chill or singular type, because as usual damage increase for the other factions do not really matter to me. Components, the basic one, Slayer set, we go with MP HP, double MP, defense MP, and double shield. With the cores, as usual, it's HP and defense. Essentially, you could go with the polar set if you want to have additional AoE damage, but it's inconsistent, plus we're having lots of AoE damage ourselves. Arcade tuning. As usual, skill power is the king, we almost take everything. Then we go with the crit damage. I'm not going with the crit rate because we already have around 90%. Kill range and skill cost as a nifty bonus. Obviously cooldown reduction to get that 2.5 seconds on the first skill and skip animation. And mutated cells critical hit damage. It gives more damage than cohesion. I also debated if I should use the minus resistance like in my previous videos. However, we're having so much damage compared to Freyna's low skill power modifier, so we're good. Inversion. For inversion, I'm going with the survivability option, damage reduction, HP regen on the cooldown, and this one for additional skill cost reduction. And fellow, I'm going with the HP one, however if you're having MP troubles, you can go with the MP one. Alternatives. This time in the alternative section I will be covering the bossing build, because it's more or less the same and I don't really want to make a separate video about that. However, when I'm farming vouchers on stream, people were asking which build I'm using. It will not be crit fishing the leaderboard farming build, because sometimes people are spending days there to get the perfect result and achieve like 10-second runs. This one goes for consistency. I'm using it mostly for the farm weekly amount of ancestor modules from ETA. So for the modules, most of the stuff is the same, with the exception we're going with the focus on singular instead of simplification, since our main damage dealers are having huge amount of skill power modifier anyway. Plus cooldown is really important. Also we removed speed dominator, we're going with the ancestor modules there, and because of that we don't need relative speed anymore, we're going for the power beyond. Consistent 15% damage increase. Yes, it works with all the descendants, because lots of people thinking this is only usable for the damage over time descendants. No. Ancestor module still has priority of the critical hit damage and singular type skill damage, and I still don't have it. If you want to play roulette, you can go cyclic amplifier as leaderboard gambas, but for me it's just not worth the hassle. I just need those vouchers for the gamba. Weapon, the same. Reactor, instead of breach boys, you are going with the attack of the Colossus. Components, still the same. What is not the same? Arcade tuning. Here we made a little bit of changes. We replaced range with the Colossus attack. We also taken critical hit rate, because the lava citadel is having huge amount of crit resistance and we're getting as much crit as possible. So for almost 100% of the crit rate we're having there, a real crit rate is around 60%. So even with this build you can sometimes get unlucky there. Also there is one leftover point. As usual, you can donate it to gsDebon. Inversion. One big change we're doing here, we need that skill cooldown at the start of the battle. So you can squeeze 2 instances of your second skill before it goes to a normal cooldown. And for the fellow, I still go for HP. However, if you follow all the mechanics, you can go with MP, because sometimes without the crits, you can run out of the mana. So how it plays? Obviously, you activate your third one to give yourself crit rate and crit damage. Then you spam your first skill. That's about it. Nah, I'm just kidding. For elites you still need to use your ultimate. If you're feeling extra fancy, go for the headshot, 10 million damage. Obviously you have to get all the stacks on the bottom right of your HUD, which is around like 3 casts. For the commanders and mini bosses you need to use your second skill. However, remember one thing. You need to have the max amount of stacks to deal the max amount of damage. For the bossing, shoot your Frost Watcher from 12-meter distance to apply the chill resistance. Apply maximum stacks, go for your second one shot, 1 kill. Did I get Hailey Ancestor module? Actually I did. Reroll time. Are you kidding me? No bueno. For the bossing, as usual you activate your third one, hold your left click, shoot some weak points to get the crit. Approach the boss, cast 2 times your ultimate and repeat. Sometimes flank toilet gets on your head, but it's fine. Around 20 seconds. If you're lucky, you can get 15 seconds. If you're unlucky, you can get 30 seconds. Because the boss is having 40% crit resistance, that means even with almost 100% crit rate we're having, the real crit is 60%. And you cannot go over the top. Couple tips and tricks. Your first skill spam is not preventing you from shooting stuff, you can do it at the same time. Or if you're creative or you watched my previous video, you can actually use Albion Cavalry Gun for things like this. Second one, as you know, I like to rebind my stuff, so I'm using the mouse wheel up button for the first skill. Really convenient. But yeah, this is it. I tried to make it as compact as possible because there is like 2 builds in one. However, I didn't want to make a separate build for the bossing because mostly are the same. But yeah, with those 2 setups, you probably can tackle with any content in the game. I also didn't mention Void Erosion. It's really weak to the chill damage. You will almost face roll it if you need weapon cores. But as usual, if there will be any updates, you will find them in the pinned comment. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.